I'm Craig Miner. I live here in Bristol, and I am a professional town planner. I have a master's in planning from UCLA. I've been the planner in Litchfield many years ago for a few years. I was the planner in excuse me, in Cromwell for about 20 years, and I'm currently the town planner in Newington. I've been there for about 3 years now. And again, I live here in Bristol. And I am a supporter of public transit. I think CTFastrak is a great thing. I'm not a spokesman for CTFastrak, so I don't know any of the details about what their expectations are for ridership or so forth. But I do know what the goal is of CTFastrak, and I think it's a good thing.
Okay. And
want to introduce yourself then?
Sure. Well, I'm Justin Moutinho. I write at thegoodmanchronicle.com. I'm just a Bristol resident interested in specifically CTFastrak and whether the history and the current projection of where they look to be going with it. So, just to start off, what is your opinion of where the idea of the CTFastrak came from? Whether you know for sure or just in general?
Right. No,
yeah.
I do think, excuse me, no, I do know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It started, of course I can't say the year, I would say maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It started when the state realized that 84 in Hartford was just getting too congested and that it was only going to continue to get worse. And there's an expression that transportation planners use about not being able to build your way out of a problem.
Okay.
And the solution to the 84 congestion was not adding another lane to 84. It would be incredibly expensive and disruptive. So the decision was made, or the realization was made, that we need to get cars off of 84. And so a couple of ways were looked at, such as fixed rail was one idea, but that was just so incredibly expensive that eventually the idea came around to the bus rapid transit. And there were projections made as to how many cars that would take off of 84, and so the decision was made over a long period of time to go with the CTFastrak route to reduce the congestion on 84.
Okay. Do you have any idea on the number of cars they were looking to take off the roadway?
I knew at one time, but that's not a number that I don't keep numbers in my head well.
Yeah.
I will usually do research before I'm interviewed to come up with numbers, but no, off the top of my head, I don't remember what they expected to get off the road.
Okay, well, I've heard numbers as high as 16,000.
You don't want to miss the 8.
Oh, yeah, is this the bus?
Well, I want the 821.
821.
No, it's only 806 right now.
So. No, so we're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so
I get the next, and if I miss it, I can get the next one. I have the schedule, so
Okay.
it's not a problem. And the game doesn't start till noon, so I'm not in any hurry.
Time now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've heard numbers as high as 16,000. That was given by Representative Tony Guerrero. And my question is, do you think people are willing to give up, 16,000 people are willing to give up personal vehicle transportation to where they're going to get on the fast track?
Well, 16,000, I don't know if 16,000 are willing to. I know some are, because it is, if it's convenient for them, and that's the key. It's got to be convenient. It's not realistic to expect people to drive a long distance to a parking lot to then get into a bus or a van or a train to ride a similar distance. No, that's not realistic. But if you make it convenient for them, then they will. Well, like today, I usually carpool with some friends to go to the game, and we meet at Walmart and then we drive in together. But if the state is going to give me a bus from practically my backyard, I only live a couple miles up, maybe not even a mile up the road here, from here to Rentschler Field, and for free for me because I'm a veteran today, but even if I paid the fare, which is whatever, a couple of bucks to ride from here to Rentschler instead of dealing with the traffic and all that, yeah, people, and that's just an example, of course, but yeah, people will do it if you make it convenient for them, and of course the savings and gas and all that.
Sure. Now, surely, I mean, they charge us $1.50, but surely it doesn't cost $1.50, right? You know,
yes.
I mean, the fast track costs at least $500 million, right?
Yeah.
So just for a special lane from New Britain to Hartford. So they created an extra lane from New Britain to Hartford, but many people, I believe yourself included, don't believe that they could have added an extra lane or expanded the highway in any kind of way to make it more convenient for vehicles, for private vehicles, correct?
Well, because of the cost.
Right. And the cost of just the fast track, just for a bus from there to there, is $500 million.
Oh, you're talking about the subsidy?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes, there is a subsidy. All public transit in America is subsidized. Amtrak is incredibly subsidized.
Right.
Because as a society, we realize how important it is to reduce the use of private automobiles. And so as
Why?
a society, for pollution reasons. It's incredibly expensive for an individual to have a car. Cars are isolating. You get in your car, you drive to work, you don't see anybody, whereas buses and public transit are socializing. So just a whole bunch of benefits to public transit.
Sure, but surely if people like those things of not having a car and driving on a bus and being around a lot of people, don't you think public transportation would be up and people would prefer that?
Well, because it is inconvenient. Again,
right.
If it's not convenient, you won't use it, and if it's inconvenient, yeah, so I'm repeating myself. So public transit is not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people for whom it's a no-brainer. There are some people for whom it just doesn't work at all. And then there are a lot of people in between. That have to be maybe given an incentive to use public transit, such as by subsidizing costs, which is what governments do.
And there's another aspect to not only incentivizing people to take the bus, but also disincentivizing the people who have a car, like increasing the gas tax, correct? Or increasing the car tax, and that will make people forced to go on forced to go on public transportation.
Well, it doesn't force them any more than subsidizing the price forces them to. It is an incentive. It's carrots and sticks. And in my opinion, any social policy, any law, but any social policy, any objective should have a carrot and a stick. Cover both ends of not the spectrum, but both ways to achieve the goal of, in this case, getting more people to use public transit. You do it by making it more expensive to keep your car, but also less expensive to use public transit.
Well, yes, and that's but don't you think people should decide what they want to do with their own money, and not a group of people deciding, well, we're going to decide this 1,000 people, because obviously if you're asking 16,000 people or whatever 1,000 people to get off the highway, it's not the person that can afford a rise in the gas tax, a rise in the car tax. It's obviously the people that are just managing to pay for these things. So if you increase it a little bit, then that will force people to go on the public transportation. Is that not a goal of the state?
Well, the state always spends people's money in ways that they may not like to. If you're a pacifist, you spend a lot of your tax dollars go to war, which pacifists are object to. Money gets spent on all kinds of programs and regulation that don't benefit everybody, but we pay for it. I don't have any kids in school, but a lot of my taxes go to Bristol schools because I recognize that it benefits society, even if it doesn't benefit me personally, and I think that's a good example. Yeah, it's if gas taxes go up to pay for other things that the government needs to spend money on, well, then that's how governments operate. They collect taxes on everybody and spend it on programs that government thinks are important for all of society, but not necessarily for every individual.
Okay, and how many of the people do you think that you can interview if you went on the bus or regular transportation, percentage-wise, and you asked them, would you prefer to have your own personal private vehicle, or would you prefer to take public transportation? What do you think?
Well, if you say to the person, would you prefer to have a car that I give you for free that I'll pay for and you get to use at no expense? Sure, everybody would rather have a car, but cars are not free. Cars are complicated and expensive, and insurance, taxes, cost of gas, and all those things. Sure, convenience is great. Everybody loves convenience. Convenience is probably one of the most important things in people's lives, but it's not as if the choice is a car with no expenses or obligations versus public transit, which is relatively inexpensive and no obligation. It's not a real it's not a fair comparison.
Well, surely it would be easier to afford a car if the state did not have policies to encourage you not to have a car, right? You don't think so?
No, a drop in the bucket. The cost of my car, I mean, Sure, I pay Bristol taxes on that car every year. I don't know, my wife pays the taxes.
Right.
And when I buy gasoline, yeah, a big chunk of that price of gas is taxes. It's gas tax. But I pay for that car a lot of money. The insurance I pay for that car is a lot of money. The maintenance I spend on that car, well, they're free, so not a lot of maintenance, is a lot of money. Tires every couple of years.
Right.
The taxes, as a percentage of what I spend on the car every year, the taxes, it's a tiny
Right.
piece.
Now you have a pretty nice car. I'm saying you get a cheaper car. Those are not expenses that you have to worry about. I mean, you know, and now the federal. I don't know. Are you aware that the federal government even subsidized this Connecticut Fast Track because it specifically took cars off the roadway? They have a program called CMAQ, the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality grants, and they give those to the state for specifically taking cars off the roadway. So that means where does the federal government can get their money? More income tax. The state can get it from sales tax. So our lives become more expensive due to these programs that may or may not work, right?
Well, one of the reasons Connecticut is being given money by the federal government to get cars off the road is because Connecticut is a highly polluted state. I think we are what they call non-compliant in terms of addressing air pollution goals, ozone goals, and so forth. So it benefits everybody to reduce pollution, and that's one of the goals of government, and that's one of the objectives of CTFastrak. So it benefits everybody to reduce pollution, and that's why the federal government is giving Connecticut money, is to help Connecticut get its pollution under control.
But again, that's something that I don't believe that there's a major pollution problem, and people who are on that bottom tier that could maybe afford a car, but now the more expensive just push them into the public transport. I don't think pollution is at the top of their list. Don't you think so?
Well, I think people aren't always aware of what's going on around them, and people take pollution for granted. They don't realize how their quality of life is diminished by pollution because they're dealing with it every day. They don't even notice it. People in China, people in Chinese cities, they may vaguely be aware of their pollution, but it's horrible. But because they deal with it every day, they're not aware of it. So I think a lot of people don't realize how bad their air quality is.
But the alternative, right? Okay, but the alternative of a China situation is them living in extreme poverty out on somewhere else, as opposed to going into this city that has pollution. And a lot of people made this decision. Well, I'd rather go live in that pollution because it's a better quality of life. I can eat more. I can have money. And obviously, I wouldn't want to get to Chinese-level air pollution, but China is a communist country, and that's completely government controlled. So government doesn't keep us from getting, government's some of the biggest waste.
Well, I would argue that the Chinese government does not have its public's best interest at heart. I would argue that their government has their own, the ruling elite has the ruling elite's best interest at heart. Whereas in America, I believe our government does have the people's best interest at heart.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, I think they're just like the Chinese government. What makes you think that these people are care more? I mean, most people want to be driving a car, so wouldn't they make more incentives to say, okay, people want to drive cars, we gotta put this out there, instead of saying, no, we're gonna make it so you guys don't drive cars?
Well, I think the proof that American government, the people who run American government are much more concerned about the quality of life than Americans in China is because American politicians do have to run for re-election every year. And even if they don't, in their heart of hearts, care about the people, they have to at least act as if they care about the people, or even pretend to. That's a little harsh word, but okay. They have to at least pretend they care about people to get re-elected, whereas Chinese politicians don't. They don't have to pretend.
Sure. Now, most of these people that are making decisions for the fast track are appointed to these positions, correct? They're not voted?
Correct.
Right. So, I mean, it's not like we can vote these people out who are making certain decisions and promoting the fast track all over the place.
Yeah, but they're professionals. They're the experts. They know.
They know.
And believe me, the experts know. I mean, I know experts people love to bash experts, but a billion decisions get made every day by the experts. And one in whatever percentage of those decisions made by experts are wrong, but in the long run, I much prefer to have the decisions in my world made by experts than by some Facebook group And yeah, the people that work for DOT, the transportation engineers, the economists, all those guys, they're experts. They know what they're doing.
So
now,
you'd rather have the experts make decisions for us than ourselves?
well, they don't make the decisions. The politicians make the decisions based on recommendations and information given to them by the experts. That's the system that we have. The technocrats at DOT didn't decide fast track. The 3 governors in Connecticut decided to do fast track. So it's
Off
DOT's
of recommendations developed by these people.
Yes, because these people are the experts.
Yes.
Because they know what they're doing. They know the numbers. They can add. They can do the math. They can give the experts give factual, unbiased information to the politicians, and then the politicians make whatever decision that they need to make.
Go ahead, Sean. You got any questions?
Sure.
Yeah, I was just wondering, how many times have you ridden the fast track?
Oh, this will be my 3rd time, all of 3. The first day that you were on it, and then I was on it a couple of months ago for the Newington Planning Commission. Did a little run on fast track just to get familiar with it, and then so this is the 3rd time.
Any reason why you don't take it to work? Or?
Actually, I take that back. I did a 4th time. I did take it to work one time. I did take it to work one morning, and I got to the Fenn Street station 2 minutes after the connecting bus, and the next one wasn't for another 20 minutes. So I called a co-worker and asked him to come pick me up at the train station or the fast track. I didn't want to wait 20 minutes for the connecting bus. So
would you have been late for work if you waited? Yeah.
Right, and the reverse trip, the local bus stops in front of Town Hall at like 4:25, and we get out at 4:30. So my personal schedule doesn't work for me to do CTFastrak.
Now, what is your understanding of the transit corridors and how they would like to focus development around the transit stations?
Okay, that's a great question. That's a really long question, and I would be happy to get together with you another time. But I've got my ear peeled for the next bus. So, but I would be happy to talk to you about the transit corridor bill that was defeated last session.
Yeah, not specifically the bill, but just from what it appears to be is the state would like to focus development around the transit stations to make it easier for people to get to the bus and go here and there. Again, isn't that planners deciding on where people are gonna live?
Well, this planners making recommendations to the elected officials. It's the elected officials who make the final decisions in all cases. It's one thing for a planner to recommend something to the city council, but it's the city council or the planning commission itself who are also, if not elected officials, are volunteers. The final decisions are always made by citizens.
Well, not really. I mean, you can't say politicians are the citizens, because how many people actually vote in even the local elections?
Politicians
Less
are
than
citizens.
10%.
Sorry, I won't agree with you on that. Politicians are citizens.
Well, sure, they are citizens, but they're not making the decision for the citizens.
Yeah, they are. That's democracy. The elected officials make the decisions.
Even if only less than 10% of the people vote for them, you still consider that as they're making decisions for the people?
Sure, because the people who don't vote are voting by not. What time is it? That wasn't my bus, was it?
Oh boy.
Yeah, that was my bus. Well, let's see. The next one is.
Sorry about that.
Oh, I thought he would stop.
Yeah.
Well, I
The
wasn't.
last one stopped and he got out of the bus.
Well, I wasn't at the bus stop, so he didn't. Anyway, 821. Oh shit! The next one's at 921. Oh, I didn't realize they were that far apart.
Crap.
Okay, guys. Well, I gotta go to Plan B, which I don't have a Plan B. Oh well.
You want to have a Plan B breakfast interview?
No,
buy?
no. That means I gotta meet my friends at Walmart, and because they're meeting there at 9 o'clock, and then carpool from Walmart. So I guess I'm gonna do that.
Okay.
All right, but I would
right,
be happy to
thank
talk
you.
to you more about some of these
Appreciate
other
that.
issues.
Yeah,
Sorry
sure.
about that.
Appreciate that.
It's okay.
Didn't even stop it.
Yeah,
just
we're just getting so into our discussion here. All right. Okay. Well, have a good weekend. Okay. Justin,
you too.
right?
Thank you.
Yeah. Nice meeting you.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Yeah.